Zachary Miller arrived at Forward Operating Base Keystone with a duffel full of gear, a letter from his mother, and a 1,000-yard stare most rookies didn't carry. He was 21, fresh-faced, but built like someone who had grown up working. The land, which, in truth, he had. He came from western Nebraska, where dirt roads stretched longer than most highways, and the sky seemed to go on forever. His childhood was a quiet one: sunrises over cornfields, long days of chores, and even longer evenings spent out back with a rifle, popping coyotes at 500 yards like it was a game. The other soldiers didn't notice much about him. He was polite, punctual, and eerily quiet. No one remembered when he first arrived, because he didn't make a scene. No jokes, no bravado. He just showed up, did the job, and slipped into the background. The kind of soldier you might forget until you needed him. They called him Farm Boy, not out of malice, but because it was easier than remembering his name. He didn't seem to mind. When they laughed, he smiled. When they cursed, he kept his head down. And when off duty, he cleaned his weapon with the obsessive care of a man preparing for something more than just another patrol. One day, during weapon drills, the instructors introduced a new piece of hardware, a monster of a gun that looked more like a cannon than a rifle. The Snipex Alligator. Manufactured in Ukraine, the Alligator was designed for long-range anti-materiel tasks. Its .50 caliber rounds could tear through light armor, and it had a recorded effective range far beyond what most snipers dared to attempt. The rifle was massive, 61 pounds without optics, and had a brutal recoil that made even seasoned shooters flinch. The moment it was unboxed, everyone stepped back. Who the hell is supposed to fire that thing? One corporal laughed, a few dared to try, firing off a few poorly aimed rounds before handing it back. Wrists sore and shoulders bruised. Zach stood in the back, hands tucked behind him, eyes locked on the rifle like it was an old friend. Something about it spoke to him. The size didn't intimidate him. Neither did the noise. He had seen the specs. He knew its potential, and he wanted to understand it fully. That night, while most soldiers were playing cards or streaming videos, on dusty tablets, Zach approached the weapons locker. "Sir," he said to the armorer on duty, requesting time on the Snipex Alligator. The armorer raised an eyebrow. "You serious?" "Yes, sir." After a moment, the armorer unlocked the cage. "You break your shoulder, don't come crying." Zach didn't reply. He carried the rifle in both arms like a sacred object, brought it to the range, and spent hours studying it, mounting the scope, adjusting the bipod, zeroing it with intense precision. The first shot he took shattered a steel plate at 1,200 meters. The second hit a smaller target at 1,800. No one watched that night. It was just Zach and the rifle, locked in silent communion. He recorded his windage, calculated the bullet drop, memorized the feel of the trigger. His hands, strong from years of farm work, didn't shake. His breath remained steady. Every night, for weeks, he returned. Sometimes Reyes would pass by during evening patrol and spot Zach lying prone under the stars, barely visible except for the flash of muzzle fire. "Kid's obsessed," Reyes muttered once, but he didn't stop him. Because even Reyes, a veteran of over a dozen deployments, could tell something was different about this rookie. Something he couldn't name yet. During daytime drills, Zach remained a ghost. He didn't show off, didn't talk about the rifle, and didn't demand attention. He took notes. He observed. When the snipers trained, he watched from a distance, studying their habits, tracking their failures. One day, while cleaning the Alligator beside the barracks, Reyes walked over, arms crossed. "You ever shot over 2,000? Reyes asked. Zach looked up, expression neutral. "Not yet." "You know the Alligator kicks like a truck, right?" "Yes, Sergeant." Reyes smirked. You think you can tame it? Zach looked back down at the rifle, running a cloth gently across the barrel. I already have. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't confidence. It was just fact. Reyes didn't laugh. Instead, he knelt beside the rookie and asked, You got a spotter? Zach shook his head. Good, Reyes said. You do now. That marked the beginning of a strange, unspoken bond. A seasoned sniper and the silent rookie began practicing together at extended ranges. Reyes fed the data. Zach pulled the trigger. Shot after shot landed with uncanny precision. When they finally set up at 3,000 meters, Reyes handed Zach the spotting scope and said, You hit this. I buy you a steak when we're back in country. Zach adjusted. Wind, drop, air pressure. He exhaled, boom, the steel target jumped. Reyes removed his sunglasses and looked at Zach with the first flicker of disbelief he'd shown in years. You're not normal, kid. Zach reloaded calmly. Neither is the rifle. And still, no one else on base noticed. They had no idea that in their midst was a man who was about to make history with a rifle too heavy for most to carry and a range too far for anyone else to reach. But soon, the war would call, and Zach would answer. With one shot the world would never forget. The Snipex Alligator didn't belong in an ordinary arsenal. It belonged in myths. Massive, with angular steel lines and a barrel longer than some soldiers were tall. It looked like something built to shoot down planets, not people. The .50 caliber behemoth wasn't just a sniper rifle. It was a statement of engineering savagery. When fired, the shockwave alone could rattle bones. Its recoil broke collarbones if you weren't ready. And yet, Zach Miller treated it like a gentle horse, respected its strength, understood its temper, and never forced control. Most who fired it once never touched it again. The recoil alone felt like being hit with a sledgehammer. But Zach took to it as if it were an extension of his arm. Night after night, while others scrolled through phones or played cards in the tent, he went out to the range. Not to play hero, he didn't think like that. He was simply drawn to its challenge. He logged everything. Every shot, every environmental detail. The range, the wind speed, humidity, angle of incline. He even carried a worn notebook filled with diagrams, math equations, and handwritten pages of ballistic calculations. It was the kind of obsessive detail that bordered on madness. Sgt. Reyes, skeptical at first, became more curious by the day. He'd stop by the range in the late hours and just watch, never speaking unless spoken to. One night, Reyes finally stepped up beside Zach, who was prone, checking a scope alignment. You write poetry in that book, or just numbers? Reyes asked, crouching. Zach glanced up. Numbers are poetry. Reyes blinked, caught off guard by the reply. All right, Hawking. That night, Zach took a shot at a 2,800-meter target, a quarter-sized plate hanging at the farthest end of the range. Most veterans didn't bother past 2,000 meters. But when the round connected with a sharp metallic ding, Reyes' jaw visibly clenched. No F******ing way. Zach sat up. Wind shifted left. Had to offset 0.5 mil. You get that from feel. Or that notebook of yours? Both. The alligator looked calm in his hands. Like it knew it belonged with him. That word started to spread not through official reports, but whispers. One soldier said the rookie had nailed the drone's camera lens from over a mile. Another claimed Zach adjusted mid-shot for a gust of wind and still hit center. Some laughed, calling it exaggeration. Reyes knew better. He wasn't just watching. A sniper, he was witnessing someone rewrite what sniping meant. One afternoon, during scheduled training with a visiting Canadian Special Forces team, an officer named L.T. Greaves overheard Reyes mention Zach's skills. Greaves scoffed. There's no way a greenhorn like that can operate the Alligator, let alone be precise past 3,000. He doesn't operate it, Reyes replied. He dances with it. Greaves rolled his eyes, but followed them to the range anyway. A challenge was issued hit, a watermelon-sized target at 3,200 meters. No support, no fancy wind tower data. Just gut, calculation, and raw skill. Zach didn't say a word. He prepped silently, lying on the mat, adjusting the bipod, aligning. His breath with the Earth's rhythm. The wind cut gently left. He adjusted the elevation dial. The range crew placed bets. Reyes watched with arms folded, eyes narrowed. Zach exhaled slowly. His fingers squeezed. Boom. 4 seconds of silence. Then smack. A puff of red mist exploded in the scope's image. The watermelon was gone. The Canadians went silent. Even LT. Greaves stared at the screen, expression unreadable. Jesus, one of them muttered. He's not Jesus, Reyes replied. But I think he met him somewhere between Nebraska and that rifle. After that, people stopped laughing. Zach never bragged, never asked for more ammo, even though he burned through it faster than anyone else. He spent time recalibrating the Alligator, constantly switching scopes, adjusting rails, even re-engineering a makeshift cheek rest from spare padding so he could stay locked in for hours without bruising. His obsession wasn't about glory. It was about perfection. One night, Reyes found him awake at 0300, recalculating drop charts by headlamp. You know you're already better than most of our snipers, right? Reyes said. Zach didn't look up. Better doesn't matter if I miss when it counts. The answer stuck with Reyes, because that was it, wasn't it? This wasn't about being the best. Zach feared one thing: failure when it mattered most. Later that week, the Alligator was temporarily pulled from base for a maintenance check. When it returned, Zach noticed the scope mount had been nudged by less than a quarter millimeter. Most wouldn't even feel the difference. Zach did. He spent 2 hours re-zeroing it. One private joked, "You marrying that thing?" Zach didn't smile. He just replied, "If you had to hit a man's heartbeat at 3,000 meters, you'd care too." The joke stopped. By this point, Reyes started documenting Zach's progress unofficially. A personal log, noting distances, patterns, shot groupings. He sent a quiet message to higher command, attaching video footage and ballistic data. The reply was dismissive at first, sounds exaggerated. But Reyes persisted. He ended one email with, "You're gonna want him when the shot comes no one else can take." Command didn't reply, but they were listening. And when that call finally came, a convoy of enemies in the open, too far for drones, too fast for ground teams. Zach Miller would be the only one in the Western Hemisphere with the skills and the nerve to pull the trigger. And fate, silent but watching, would smile. It began with a scramble at the TOC Tactical Operations Center. A high-value convoy had been spotted moving through northern Syria, weaving through mountain passes near the Iraqi border. Intel said this wasn't just any group of insurgents. Among them were 3 top-tier commanders, each responsible for hundreds of coalition casualties. One of them, codenamed Ghazi, had eluded capture for 5 years. His location was never known more than 30 minutes before he vanished again. This time, the stars aligned. Satellite imagery confirmed Ghazi was in a black SUV at the front of the convoy, moving toward a fortified valley hideout. The terrain was unforgiving. Airstrikes were ruled out, too many civilians in the area. Ground forces couldn't get close. Without compromising the mission, they needed a shot. A single shot, but the distance was obscene. 3,800 meters. Nearly 2.4 miles. No recorded combat kill had been made from that far, not officially. Not by anyone in theater. The list of snipers, even capable of attempting it, was short. Most were unavailable or already deployed on separate operations. Reyes stood in the corner of the briefing room, arms crossed, watching commanders argue. It's impossible. Even a Barrett .50 can't reach that far with accuracy. The terrains. Garbage thin air, elevation shifts, unstable winds. One general rubbed his temples. You want to roll the dice on this? This isn't Call of Duty. Reyes stepped forward. I've got someone who can make that shot. They turned to him, the colonel laughed. What? You brought in a specialist? No, Reyes said. He's already here. He motioned toward the door. It opened quietly. Zach walked in, calm, eyes sharp. No medals, no badges, just regulation gear and a notebook in hand. This is your guy? One intel officer asked, incredulous. He's the only guy. Reyes replied. Zach stood silent, waiting. Son, do you know what we're asking? The colonel said, a touch of doubt in his voice. Zach nodded. One shot, 3,800 meters. Vehicle. Target. Confirmed identity. Conditions will be tough. High elevation. Moving convoy. A narrow window. I'll be ready. The room went silent for a few seconds. Fine, the colonel said at last. You'll have one chance. Don't miss. That night, under tight security, Zach and Reyes were flown by helicopter to the nearest forward outpost near the strike zone. From there, it was a brutal 10-hour foot ascent up a jagged ridge snow-dusted rock, loose gravel, and cold air thin. Enough to make lungs burn. They carried minimal gear. Cold weather camouflage, high-protein rations, tactical optics, and of course, a Snipex Alligator, broken down into 3 pieces and carefully protected. The rifle alone weighed more than some of the gear combined. Reyes took the barrel. Zach carried the receiver like it was his spine. As they climbed, neither spoke much. Words weren't necessary anymore. At one point, near a cliffside, Reyes glanced. Back, you nervous? Zach shook his head. I've already made the shot. I just have to do it again. Reyes grinned. They reached the designated overwatch point by 0300 hours A. Jagged rock ledge with a clear line of sight over the pass where the convoy would appear. Below them, raw silence. No birds, no wind. Just snow, stone, and anticipation. Zach immediately got to work, setting up the bipod, adjusting for incline, recalibrating the scope to account for the thin mountain air. Reyes unpacked the spotting gear and laid flat beside him. How much drop? Reyes asked. Over 400 feet, Zach said. At this distance, the round will be in flight for nearly 5 seconds. And wind? Minimal now. But it'll shift. I'll watch the dust trails on the ridge. Reyes whistled. You're not human. Zach smiled faintly. Neither is this rifle. They waited. Hours passed. Fingers froze. Eyes stayed locked on optics. At 0630, the convoy appeared 7 vehicles, moving single file through the Serpentine Mountain Road. Target confirmed. Ghazi in the lead SUV, Reyes said, adjusting his rangefinder. Zach narrowed his eyes behind the scope, marking speed. Target will be within optimal window in 22 seconds. Time slowed. Breathing slowed. Everything outside that scope disappeared. Just crosshairs. Just movement. Just math. Winds shifting right. Quarter-mile gust. Reyes warned. Zach adjusted 2 clicks left. The SUV came into full view. 10 seconds. Zach exhaled. 7. His finger rested on the trigger. 4. The world held its breath. 3. Zach whispered, "Send it." The alligator roared. The rifle bucked against his shoulder. The echo bounced across the cliffs like a drum of war. Then silence. Seconds crawled. Reyes stayed locked through his scope. Come on, come on. Then dash impact. The lead SUV lurched violently. The windshield spider-webbed. Smoke billowed from the driver's side. The convoy screeched to a halt. Reyes stared, mouth open. Direct hit, center mass. He's down. Oh my God, he's down. Zack didn't celebrate. He rechecked his scope. Adjusted again. Watched chaos bloom in the valley. Below, Reyes finally turned to him. Kid, that was 3,800 meters. That's not just a kill, that's history. Zack calmly took out his notebook and wrote, Ghazi, 3,800 meters. Wind, say 3 miles per hour. Temp, -2 degrees Celsius. Drop, 412 feet. Impact, center chest. He closed it. Reyes stared. How the hell? Did you do that? Zack finally looked at him, eyes steady. I've been training for this shot my whole life. As dawn broke over the ridge, the silence after the shot felt louder than the thunder that came before it. Smoke drifted upward from the disabled SUV below, curling through the cold mountain air like a flag of defeat. The other vehicles in the convoy scrambled, tires screeching, doors flying open, men yelling in confusion. But the lead vehicle didn't move again. Its front windshield was painted with blood from the inside. Ghazi was gone. One shot. No survivors in that car. No second chance. Reyes kept watching through his scope, speechless. He scanned the chaos-armed men, pointing rifles at the mountainside, yelling into radios. They had no idea where the shot came from, let alone how far. Some dove for cover. Others fired blindly at the rocks, wasting ammo on ghosts. Zack, on the other hand, had already moved into post-strike protocol. He began disassembling the Alligator quickly, but gently, like a ritual. Every motion was practiced, silent, efficient. You just made history, Reyes finally said, eyes still glued to the scope. Zack didn't look up. We should move before they pinpoint elevation. They wrapped up fast and began descending. Along a narrow, icy trail, ducking low, covering their tracks. The mission wasn't over until they were off that mountain alive. But the weight of what just happened hadn't even begun to register. Back at Forward Operating Base Keystone, the TOC erupted the moment confirmation came through. A satellite image captured the smoking wreck of the SUV with an unmistakable heat signature. One fatality, precisely in the front passenger seat. Facial ID drones later confirmed it. Ghazi was eliminated. A colonel who had doubted Zack earlier stood motionless, the printout in his hand trembling. Distance. Confirmed? 3,800? The analyst nodded. Yes, sir. Wind adjusted. Uphill. Moving target. We've double-checked it. It's real. The entire room went quiet. One man whispered, Holy hell. Word spread faster than wildfire. Within an hour, the Pentagon had the footage. By nightfall, NATO command requested verification. By midnight, whispers of the shot reached as far as Ukraine, home of the Alligator's design team. Engineers stared at the report in disbelief. One said, No way. Not even with perfect wind. Another shook his head. Not unless the shooter was the wind. While the world reeled, Zack sat on a folding cot back at the outpost, drinking lukewarm black coffee from a dented metal cup. His gloves were still off, his fingers red from cold and recoil. He was staring at a blank wall. Reyes entered the tent and tossed him an energy bar. Command wants you on a secure call. Zack looked up. Why? They think you're some kind of alien. Zack gave the faintest smirk. Reyes sat beside him. I told them you weren't normal. They didn't believe me. I'm not, Zack said. Normal people miss. Outside, the wind howled across the cliffs. A snowflake drifted inside and landed on Zack's trigger finger. He didn't move, just stared forward, processing. You all right? Reyes asked. Zack nodded slowly. It felt peaceful. Reyes raised an eyebrow. The moment before the shot, Zack added. The silence, like the world paused, waiting. Reyes leaned back. That's the kind of thing people write in books after the war. Zack sipped his coffee. I didn't do it for books. I know. Back at the base, the camera footage of the shot was pulled from their drone feed and analyzed frame by military experts. The trajectory arc, the bullet's time of flight, 4.3 seconds, and the minimal drift were all cross-checked with topographic and weather data. British SAS sniper, who reviewed the footage, said simply, that shot is F******ing mythical. Another team ran simulations using top-tier AI. The success rate for that shot under those conditions? 1 in 48,000. Yet Zack made it look easy. Back at home, Zack's mother received a cryptic message. Your son has made the country proud today. She read it twice and set it gently on the table, saying nothing, just staring at the folded American flag already on the mantel from her other son, who never came home. She whispered, please don't make him a hero too soon. 2 days later, a quiet ceremony was held at base. No media, no photographers, just brass and soldiers. The general pinned a medal on Zack's chest, a rare commendation typically reserved for elite operators. He stood still, eyes straight, uncomfortable. Under the attention, you're the youngest shooter in history to make a kill at that distance, the general said. You've changed how we think about warfare. Zack didn't respond. He only saluted and walked off the moment he was dismissed. Later, Reyes found him on the range, setting up the Alligator again. You already proved yourself. Why are you still out here? He asked. Zack finished lining up the scope. Because the next shot might be harder. Reyes stood there quietly, watching the rookie who wasn't a rookie anymore. He realized that Zack didn't shoot for medals or history or legend. He shot because somewhere deep down, he believed there was always a harder shot coming, and he wanted to be ready for it. In the days that followed the Ghazi kill, the story spread like a shockwave through every corner of the global military community. It wasn't on the news. It couldn't be. The mission was classified, the names redacted, the footage locked behind high clearance access. But inside Black Ops rooms, sniper schools, and command centers, everyone whispered the same question. Did you hear about the 3,800-meter shot? NATO command passed the footage between special forces teams in stunned silence. A Canadian JTF-2? Sniper instructor watched the trajectory replay 10 times, slowly removing his glasses. That's not possible, he muttered. That's impossible. It happened, the analyst replied. We verified everything. Wind drift, bullet flight time, incline data, it all lines up. In Ukraine, the team that built the Snipex Alligator held an emergency meeting. Their lead ballistics engineer leaned forward with bloodshot eyes and whispered in disbelief. We knew the rifle had potential, but that shot changes the rulebook. Within 48 hours, the manufacturer released a quiet internal memo. The Alligator has reached its apex. Whoever the shooter is, he has proven what our engineers only theorized. The rifle has met its perfect partner. Back at FOB Keystone, the atmosphere had changed. Soldiers who used to ignore Zack now gave him nods of respect. Some saluted him in passing. Others tried to spark casual conversations, but Zack remained as quiet as ever. He wasn't used to being seen. They didn't know what to make of him. He was still the same kid who kept to himself, still the same one who wrote notes in a dog-eared book and drank plain black coffee alone. But now, they knew what those eyes were capable of. Reyes had started calling him Ghost Hand. Why? Zack asked one evening. Because you didn't just take the shot, Reyes said, grinning. You vanished after it. Like a ghost who whispers through a storm. Zach didn't laugh. He just quietly cleaned the alligator's receiver dot at Sniper. Schools in the US and Europe, instructors began using Zach's shot as a case study. It wasn't just a lesson in precision. It was a masterclass in control, patience, and cold-blooded calculation. The shooter factored air density, wind speed, bullet drop, and a moving target, all while lying on frozen rock for 6 hours. One trainer said to a class of recruits, "You want to be a sniper? That's the bar now." No one in the room spoke. Even among Tier 1 operators, the story gained mythical status. Some farm kid took out Ghazi from 3,800 meters with an alligator. No spotter team? No support? They asked. When they were told Reyes spotted for him, most just whistled. "He's the only one I'd trust with a shot like that." Zach wanted no part in the attention. He declined multiple interview requests from embedded defense writers. The Pentagon offered a quiet promotion. He refused it. Twice. Not because he didn't care, but because he cared too much about staying useful. Rank made you visible. Visibility made you a target. Reyes pulled him aside one night. "They're trying to put you on posters, you know." "And they're wasting ink," Zach replied. "I think they're scared, actually," Reyes said. "Scared of what you represent." Zach looked up from cleaning his scope. "What's that?" "A future they can't control. A war fought by minds, not just machines." Zach didn't answer, but the words settled in his chest like a weight. Insurgent chatter picked up after Ghazi's death. Intercepts revealed confusion, paranoia. Some believed it was a drone strike. Others said it had to be a spy inside the convoy. But one line kept showing up, over and over in different tongues. "There is a sniper who can kill from beyond the mountains." The myth spread in whispers. Fighters refused to travel in convoys. Some changed routes randomly or canceled missions entirely. In 2 separate regions, known warlords wore makeshift body armor indoors and refused to go near windows. Reyes read the reports with a slow grin. "You've officially terrified people who've never even seen your face." "I don't want fear," Zach said quietly. "But you've earned it." Later that week, Zach received a private encrypted message. He recognized the routing code, JSOC, Special Operations. Command wanted to meet. The message was brief. "You are being considered for Ghost Viper. Assignment, long-range black recon. If interested, prepare for zero-name service." No credits. No press. No history. Zach read the line twice. He didn't hesitate. He typed one word, "Ready." That night, Reyes found Zach out by the far range again, just before sunset. The alligator lay beside him, resting like a loyal dog. The snow was beginning to fall again. "You're leaving, aren't you?" Reyes asked. Zach nodded. "They're taking you into the shadows?" "They want someone who can vanish after the shot," Zach replied. Reyes sat beside him on the cold ground. "You know, most people would want parades. Book deals, medals. I don't care about glory. What do you care about?" Zach looked out at the endless landscape, the sky folding into twilight, hitting the next impossible target. And somewhere, deep in another country, a man stared nervously at a map marked with danger zones. He circled one region, then whispered to his aide, "Avoid that valley." "Why, sir?" "Because there's someone out there who doesn't miss." After the shot, after the whispers, and after the cold climb back down from the mountains, Zach Miller quietly disappeared. Not literally, he still walked the base, ate in the same mess, trained at the same range, but in a way that mattered. He was gone. No more was he just a rookie. No more was he invisible. Now every hallway glance lingered longer. Every conversation halted when he entered the room. It wasn't awe, it was reverence. A touch of fear. The kind people held for those who'd done something they couldn't understand. He hated it. Zach. wasn't built for attention. He didn't crave rank or recognition. He found peace in the silence of a rifle scope, not the loud applause of commanders. But peace was becoming scarce. His shot 3,800 meters, confirmed, recorded, was still rippling across the military world like a stone dropped in a still lake. The Pentagon had plans. Within days of returning to base, Zach was ordered to attend a classified briefing. A staff of clean-cut officials in black suits sat in front of him. One held a tablet, flicking through drone footage of the Ghazi kill. They spoke calmly, almost surgically. You've created an international ripple. Intelligence confirms at least 6 insurgent networks have changed operational protocols based on your shot. Zach stayed silent. You've shown that distance no longer protects targets. Still silent. We want to put your name behind a recruitment campaign. Highlight long-range capabilities. Inspire the next generation. Zach looked up. No. The room fell quiet. No cameras, no interviews. No names, he said, voice flat. I don't shoot to be seen. The lead official blinked. You understand the strategic value of your story, don't you? I understand the bullet did its job. That's enough. Back on base, he turned down a medal ceremony. It was quietly rescheduled without him. Still, his legend grew. New recruits sought glimpses of him like a myth walking among them. Some even called him the Ghost of Keystone. Every time the Alligator appeared at the range, a small crowd would gather at a distance, pretending not to watch. Even seasoned shooters refused to use the rifle after Zach, out of respect or fear of comparison. Reyes saw it happening and grew concerned. They're building something around you, he warned one night over coffee. A story you can't control. I don't want their story, Zach said. I want my silence. But silence doesn't last in war. Weeks later, Zach was approached by Commander Harlan, a man known only by a handful of Tier 1 operators. He wore no insignia. His records were sealed. But his presence made hardened men stand straighter. We've been watching you, Sergeant, Harlan said. Zach didn't flinch. So has everyone. Not like us. Harlan handed him a black envelope. No markings, no rank. Just one sentence inside. Welcome to Red Ghost. Zach looked up. What is it? Something between a myth and a weapon, Harlan replied. You'll operate without a name, without history. You'll never be confirmed, never be thanked. But you'll make sure wars never start. And if I say no? Harlan smiled faintly. You won't. He was right. The next day, Zach disappeared. From FOB Keystone. No goodbye, no ceremony. Just an empty cot and a rifle rack left bare. Some thought he was reassigned. Others whispered he had died. Only Reyes knew the truth. And even he didn't know where Zach had gone, just that he was no longer part of this world. He became a shadow, buried in layers of deniability. No identification. No uniform. Just coordinates, encrypted orders, and targets that couldn't be named on paper. They gave him a codey name, Longhand. The name spread through secret channels. Even among elite snipers, Longhand was an echo, a story told in low voices during midnight patrols. No one knew his face. No one had met him twice. But all knew the same line. If the mission's impossible, give it to Longhand. His first target. Under Red Ghost was a mobile command center hidden inside a desert canyon in Central Asia. The distance, 4,000 meters. Sandstorms, high-altitude winds, and rotating watch shifts made any approach impossible. Zach hiked 30 kilometers alone, setting up under cover of darkness. He lay in the sand for 17 hours, unmoving, heart rate controlled. When the moment came, the shot pierced through 2 layers of metal and struck the target mid-transmission. He was gone before the dust settled. No one saw him. Weeks later, a Russian mercenary unit lost its leadership in the Caucasus. One round. 3,700 meters. Confirmed. In Africa, a warlord known for child conscription was found dead behind bulletproof glass. No break-in. No breach. Just a hole the size of a thumbprint impossibly placed from 3,900 meters away. Wherever he went, fear followed. No noise. No warning. Just precision and absence. Back in Washington, analysts created a new tag for tracking unexplained high-value target losses. Possible longhand event. Each time a VIP died from an impossible angle, it was marked. Over time, even enemies began to believe longhand was more than human. Some called him a curse. Others believed he was a satellite-based weapon. But those who had seen the bullet casings, Snipex markings knew better. He was real. And he didn't miss. One night, deep inside a forward base on the edge of a frozen battlefield, Reyes opened a secure message on his terminal. No sender, just a phrase. Still watching the wind. Reyes smiled. You son of a gun. You're still out there. He walked outside, looked toward the horizon, and whispered to the cold, empty night. Whatever you've become, don't forget who you were. Because the world already has. By now, the name Longhand was etched in the darkest corners of war rooms around the world. He wasn't in any official database, yet he haunted more maps than most generals. Strategic changes were made simply on the possibility that he might be watching. Operations halted, routes diverted, parades canceled. In Moscow, one general slammed a folder, shot after reviewing footage of a convoy that never made it to its destination. Find out if he was in theater. But sir, no one ever confirms his location. The general's face was pale. Exactly. In Tehran, rebel cells began spreading rituals before movement blessing convoys, changing drivers, offering prayers that they wouldn't be the next unnamed casualty. The myth had grown teeth. No one had seen his face. No one had heard his voice. But bodies fell in silence, and that was proof enough. He was a rumor in the wind, and every gust felt like death. Deep inside a snowy bunker in Eastern Europe, Zach lay prone, his cheek resting against the pad of his reassembled Alligator. The rifle no longer shone. It was scraped, battered, personalized. The kill marks etched into its stock were not symbols of pride, but of burdens he never spoke of. Didn't count kills. He recorded distances. 4,000, 3,940, 3,650, 4,050, each one. An impossible shot. Each one, a name no one would ever hear again. But with each mission, something had begun to shift inside him. The silence that once brought clarity now rang louder, heavier, and the recoil of the Alligator didn't just jolt his body. It started to echo in his mind. Rhea's voice haunted him sometimes. Whatever you've become, don't forget who you were. Who was he anymore? Not Zach Miller. That name was gone. Erased. Even Red Ghost Command didn't use it. His files were blacked out. His dog tags destroyed. Only Longhand remained, and Longhand didn't dream. He aimed. He breathed. He killed. One mission nearly cracked him. Red Ghost Handler sent him to a snowy ridge in the Balkans to eliminate a rogue, ex-military strategist who trained war criminals. The man ran classes underground, teaching child soldiers how to handle rifles, explosives, and fear. Zach took the shot at 3,600 meters. Through fog, through glass, through a half-closed metal door. It was clean. But through his scope, as the body fell, a child ran to the fallen man, sobbing. He couldn't have been more than 10. Zach blinked. His finger hovered over the bolt. For the first time. He hesitated to reload. Back at the safe house. He sat alone for hours, the rifle in pieces in front of him, not cleaning it, not preparing it, Just staring. What happens to a man who becomes a weapon? That night, he left his notebook open on the floor. For the first time, he didn't write anything down. No distance. No wind speed. No air density. Nothing. 2 weeks later, Reyes received a flash message from a secure, untraceable server. I need to see the sky. That was it. Reyes packed a bag, made a call, and disappeared from the grid. No one asked why. He found Zach in a small cabin outside a mountain village near the Polish border. Snow thick as memory covered the rooftops. Inside, Zach was thinner, quieter than ever, but alive. He didn't say much. Reyes didn't push. They drank hot tea and watched the sky change color. Finally, Zach spoke. I don't know if I'm still a man. You never stop being one. Reyes replied. I don't feel like one. Reyes leaned forward. Z, you became what we needed. You gave the impossible a name. But that doesn't mean you're lost. Zach didn't reply. Reyes added, even ghosts get to come home eventually. Zach's hands tightened around the cup. I'm not ready. Reyes nodded. Then stay here a while. Let the sky remind you. Back at Red Ghost Command, the disappearance wasn't ignored. Some called it desertion. Others knew better. One of the directors, a veteran himself, said, you don't chain a lightning bolt. You wait for the next storm. And storms were always coming. Zach stayed off mission for 47 days. He hiked, breathed, chopped wood, cooked his meals, and slowly began to write again. Not kill data, just thoughts, memories. He wrote about Nebraska sunsets, about the first time he held a rifle, about the sound of silence before the Ghazi shot. The Alligator stayed in its case, untouched. Until one day, news came through Reyes. A convoy of kidnapped civilians was being moved through a canyon riddled with anti-air threats. Drones couldn't enter. Teams couldn't reach them in time. Only one person could make the shot from the Yastio. Opposite cliff. Zach didn't hesitate. He opened the case. Time to go to work, he said. Reyes smiled. Welcome back, Ghost End. And as they geared up, snow falling again around them, Zach looked to the horizon. The wind was steady. His breath was calm. He wasn't whole. He wasn't broken. He was ready. The canyon was carved by time, deep and narrow, flanked by jagged rock and silence. Far below, a convoy of armored trucks crept through its shadowed path. Inside those trucks, 26 hostages. Doctors, aid workers, translators, even children. Captured from a Red Cross facility 2 days earlier. The captors knew airstrikes couldn't reach them. They knew response teams wouldn't make it in time, but they didn't know about Longhand. Zach stood on the ridge above, dressed in a wind-faded parka, his Snipex Alligator resting on the cliff like a sleeping dragon. Reyes crouched beside him. With a spotter scope, voice low. Primary target confirmed. Front truck. Driver's side. Zach didn't respond. He was already calculating. Distance, 4,120 meters. Elevation difference, 68 meters. Wind, shifting, 4 miles per hour cross breeze westward. Movement, slow, uneven terrain. Slight uphill. Engine heat shimmer. This was the hardest shot of his life. Harder than Ghazi. Harder than any mission under Red Ghost. And he knew, deep down, that it might be his last. He exhaled. The cold air stung his lips. Time slowed. I've got wind, Reyes whispered. Quarter click right. Elevation up 1. Zach said calmly. Reyes nodded. When you're ready. Zach's finger moved to the trigger. The memory of the boy sobbing over a body flickered in his mind. Then another memory, the sound of laughter in Nebraska fields. He pushed it away. Focused. The front truck hit a bump. The driver straightened it out. Zach inhaled. Counted to 4. Exhaled. Boom. The recoil thundered off the mountain. Snow shook loose from nearby rocks. 4 seconds passed. Nothing. Then metal cracked. The front truck's windshield exploded inward. The vehicle jerked left, slammed into a canyon wall, and halted. Chaos erupted behind it. Reyes blinked through his scope. Driver down. Precise entry. You cleared the canyon. Zach didn't smile. He didn't speak. He was already chambering a second round. One of the gunmen climbed atop the rear truck, shouting orders. Zach adjusted. Boom. He fell off the truck like a puppet with strings cut. In under 3 minutes, Zach fired 4 rounds, all hits. No wasted shots. No second guesses. By the time ground units reached the canyon's entrance, the hostage convoy was frozen, abandoned by its panicked captors. All hostages survived. The rescue team leader later said, "It felt like God had cleared a path for us." But it wasn't God. It was Longhand. Back at the cabin that night, Zach sat in silence beside a dying fire. The alligator leaned against the wall like it always did, quiet, massive, patient. Reyes poured 2 cups of coffee. "You broke your own record again." Zach didn't move. Reyes continued, "That shot will go into every sniper school manual for the next 100 years." Still silence. Then Zach spoke softly, eyes on the fire. "That was the last one." Reyes looked up. "You sure?" Zach nodded. "I did what I came to do. I made the shot that saved lives, not ended them. You saved hundreds before. Not like that." Reyes understood. Zach wasn't walking away because he was tired. He was walking away because, for the first time, he felt the mission was finished. He had become the myth. And now, it was time to let the myth die. Red Ghost Command received Zach's encrypted final message days later. Mission complete. Longhand going dark. There was no reply. There didn't need to be. They knew. The alligator was returned to a secret vault in an unmarked facility. It was placed inside a glass case with a single inscription. Max confirmed combat range, 4,120 meters. Operator, classified. Over the years, new generations came through Red Ghost. They heard whispers in cold tunnels, saw that rifle through the glass, and asked questions. Was it true? Did the shooter really never miss? The veterans never answered. They only nodded. Zach never rejoined civilian life. Not fully. He traveled quietly, living near remote lakes, sometimes in Alaska, sometimes Norway, sometimes nowhere at all. Occasionally, Reyes would visit, and they'd sit by the fire and talk about anything but the war. One winter, Reyes brought him a box. Inside, the worn notebook Zach had used all those years ago. Somehow, Reyes had kept it safe. Zach flipped through it slowly. Wind speeds, calculations, notes about recoil, bullet drop, and silence. Then, at the very end, one page he didn't recognize, written by Reyes. "You didn't just pull off the impossible, brother. You taught the world what it meant to aim for something higher. You were more than a sniper. You were our long reach when no one else could reach." Zach closed the notebook. For once, he allowed himself to smile. Not for the shot, but because. Finally, it was over, and the wind, ever faithful, kept whispering across the lake, as if carrying his legend from ridge to ridge, where soldiers would one day lay in the cold, aiming high, remembering the ghost who never missed. The end.